What up, girl?
What up, girl? Right back at you,
How
baby.
how are you?
I'm good. Come here often.
Welcome to the first deep dish of 2024. Yo.
Yes, and we thought we'd go
All right.
something really deep, which seems a little bit surface level when you first think about it, but it goes very deep very quickly, especially if you're me and your version of flirting is going up to the bar and asking really personal questions of strangers.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, girl. I love that this is our topic. I think sometimes like for our deep dishes, we do really heavy stuff because we want to go deeper.
Yeah.
And I'm like generational trauma. And this is like flirting. So I love it. Anyways,
Yeah.
what are you wearing? How are you feeling?
I think the answer to both is not great. But I'm wearing a nice crew neck gray heather sweater. That's a little bit of a wider neck. It's not quite a crew neck. It's like if a crew neck and a boat neck had a baby. Like it's a little wider. And a nice simple white collared shirt.
Keeping it cash.
I look like I'm a bank teller.
I would go to your bank. I would go to your window.
Come to my window. And then I have a
Yes.
and then I have a very nice, probably the most conservative thing sold on Disturbia.com, which is like a goth fashion outlet website. I have a nice elastic,
Oh,
like window check, olive and black skirt. And it does have some nice pockets in it. But
we love a pocket.
me too. On a rare occasion, I'm not wearing a Shakti tonight, so sorry about it.
I am worried about you.
Yeah, I know.
I
That's
am.
that's how you know something's wrong.
Well, I'm in the shirt that we bought together,
Yes,
and I love it. It's one of my faves. And then
me
these are
too.
some of my favorite like drawstring wide-legged pants.
Hmm.
I used to wear them to work all the time, but now they're really stained. So I just wear them around the house, and they're
So
like
they're home pants.
they're home pants. Yeah, I went down to Miami, and you go down to Miami on a Sunday. You never know. Praise him.
You get
What
you
happened,
get spilt
girl?
upon.
And I thought I'd treat myself to a Japanese whiskey tonight on the rocks for our deep dish.
Oh, nice. What's it called? Is it something
It
fun?
is I call it my bad day whiskey. This actually pulls into flirting. So I'll tell the actual story about why it's called my bad day whiskey.
Please
But
do.
It's Nika coffee grain whiskey. So it doesn't taste
Oh,
like coffee. It just is filtered through coffee grain.
it doesn't wake you up at all?
No.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it wakes up something.
you've told me about Nika before. I think you might have even given a
Mm,
little bit of it to me.
I'm sure. That's right. That sounds like me.
Yeah. It was it was good.
But do you want to tell me what you're drinking, or do you want me to tell the story of why it's my bad day whiskey, which ties into our theme of flirting?
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I want you to guess what I'm drinking. I know it's going to be really difficult.
It's like here's the plot twist: it's a Manhattan or
Yeah.
like a chamomile tea in a china cup. So you just never know.
Yeah. Sometimes it's scotch in a teacup because I like to switch it
I do
up.
like when you do scotch in a teacup. That hits me. I really like that. It's so vintage.
Yeah.
Well, the Nika coffee green whiskey, my favorite story, and it's just absolutely filled with flirting. Um, I went through a horrific breakup. It's actually the only breakup where I needed a restraining order. Shouts, you know who. And
What a callback.
I know, and I needed to get out, and I was like, you know what? I need a minute. Like, I'm just gonna go meet up with a friend of mine, and he was a food critic, and I was like, hey, like, he's a great guy. We've been friends for years. And he's like, I was like, hey, um, can I crash at your place for, just a few nights, just kind of get my shit together and figure out my next move. He's like, of course. He's like, hey, I'm going to this new restaurant, amazing chef. Now I think he's like, this chef was nominated for a James Beard Award, but back then he was just this cool chef. And it's a new restaurant. You want to come with me? I'm going to write an article. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, free dinner. Like, I'm so fucking tired, right? At this point, The breakup has been
Yeah.
just terrible. So
Sounds like a really nice evening.
it was amazing. So we get there, and it was a restaurant in Columbus, Ohio, and the new iteration is not this, so don't go. But at the time, it was Service Bar, and it was when Service Bar opened,
Oh,
and we
rip.
sat at the Godfather table, which was like this big giant, like because they rolled everything out for him, because he's the food critic, right?
Oh,
So we were in this
gorgeous.
gorgeous
Yeah.
inlaid like Godfather round. It seated 8. It was just us. We were
Mm-hmm.
like nestled in there, and they just brought shit out. And I looked at him and I was like, order for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so done making decisions and fighting for this and that and blah blah blah. I was like, order for me.
Take me on a journey. I love that.
Yeah, right. And he ordered me this on the rocks.
That's great. I love that story.
And we just had a delicious meal. Nothing like nothing, nothing sexual, but it was just this
Yeah, it wasn't about
freedom.
that.
It wasn't about that. It was about the food and the like freedom of what it feels like
Mm-hmm.
leaving a bad relationship,
Mm-hmm.
um, and being able to like flirt and not feel like someone's gonna like come at you later that night, right? Because you talked to
Phrasing.
someone, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like just this like freedom of, you know what I mean? With no
Anything
expectation
could happen. Yeah.
and no follow through.
Yeah.
So this to me just good relationship, good relationship, good day, bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Good news, bad news is one of these beverages that kind of just brings me back to a very like freeing time and moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it for me it smells like freedom.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And as you were talking, I was thinking like it does sound very liberating, especially when you're like, please take me on a journey, make the decisions. I'm along for the ride. And I was thinking like the conditions for that to really feel available to me are like a certain amount of trust. So like
Yeah.
if you're with someone you really trust, like a friendship even, and you're like, let's just go, let's just do it. One of my favorite times that we ever spent together is where we just went to Easton and we walked around, and then we ended up at the patio at not Bon V, but whatever one was across the street. There was a nice patio. It wasn't a Bravo. It was like there's like 3 things in that area called a B. It started
Yeah.
with a B. But anyway, it was one of those Italian restaurant. And we went in the outdoor patio, and we just had like a really nice caprese salad and a glass of prosecco. And the
Yes.
afternoon sun was so nice, and we literally had like no
And
other
remember
plans
how
for the
weird
day.
that server was?
I do remember that. That was a little off-putting, but it was also like kind of part of the fun experience because you and I were trying to figure out what was happening together, and it was just like
And she
another
was trying to
layer.
figure out.
Yeah, she was trying to figure it out too, and like none of us had any answers for each other. But no,
No, it was a
it
real
was just
hot
like
mess.
this sort of odd oversharing, and then like asking what our opinions were about these like really personal things in her life, and we were like, we got nothing, but can we
Like,
have
no,
another prosecco, please? Thank you so
yes.
much. And it was just another layer of the experience we were sharing. So, girl, speaking of things I couldn't completely figure out, I had a really great flirting experience recently. Can I tell you about it? So I do a little thing on Sundays where I go and dance in a used to be a Methodist church, and now it's a church of a different kind. It's more of like a kind of metaphysical, spiritual space, and so I go to ecstatic dance on Sundays, and I saw this guy
You
who
need to explain ecstatic dance because you say it like it's normal.
people
And
can
I'm
look it
not
up.
here to say
People,
it's not normal, but I just give a quick summary of what it is.
well, dear children, there's this state of flow that you can achieve when when you set the right conditions for a container. It's an adult exercise, pretty much. But I mean, kids, it's family friendly. Kids can come too. They have, but you have a DJ that will start very low energy. So maybe you're hearing like babbling brooks in the forest. Maybe you're hearing like bird song. You're hearing pan flutes, and then it builds up slowly to sort of like club music, like something with a little bit of a beat, house music, techno, whatever. And then you like go back down to intensity to something really low, and maybe you ended out with like a sound bath or something, which I'm not going to explain sound baths. We don't have time.
No, 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 you don't need.
So, but the whole thing is like, it's a non-judgmental space for people to move. It's part dance and it's part interpretive movement. So like, you don't even have to dance if you don't want to. You can sit down, you can journal, you can wiggle, you can pretend like you're a whale and just do like, you could do whatever you want. You know what I mean? And
there's no talking.
No,
right?
there's no talking. So it's all just about movement, and you can dance with consent with other people, or like me, I just tend to do my own thing by myself.
Right.
Yeah. It attracts it attracts a lot of people who are into energy and like magic and alternative spirituality, and so it's also like a very interesting eclectic group of people who are like really open.
Yeah.
To all kinds of things, like that you can go up to somebody and talk to them and just get like very intent eye gaze and active listening. It's lovely.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're at ecstatic dance.
Yes. I'm at it, and we are in the midst of it, and I pass this guy that I'd seen like twice. I thought he'd been... This thing happens where you think someone's been coming a long time, and it's like only their second week. So I passed by him a couple times. He held the door open for me because I was carrying stuff up to my studio upstairs where I do tarot, which is very nice. So I was like, oh, thanks, you, but I didn't know his name. And then we made eye contact a couple times, and then the third time, I was like... I sort of like put my hands out, like, do you want a hug? And he gave me a hug, and then he started like massaging one of my shoulder blades. And I know what you're thinking. This is a very deep, intimate touch for someone you don't know.
Yes, and you hate massages.
I do. Like, normally I do.
No.
I don't go.
Massage.
I don't go to avoid being touched by people I don't know, because that's how much I dislike it.
Yes.
So this started happening, and I asked myself in that moment, how do I feel about this? Because I'm a pretty clear boundary setter, and I feel like this space is... We talk about consent a lot, so it's like, I knew that if I was just like, oh, no thank you, it would have been fine, right? But I was actually kind of like, this actually feels really good. Like, I could tell he had some skill in this, and I felt some things being unspooled as he was doing, like, I was like, tension was being released. I was like, It looked like that. And then, so my head is on one of it. Yeah, really, like, my head was on his shoulder, so thankfully he couldn't see me, like. But, yeah, it felt really good. And then I thought he was pulling away, and he moved my head from one of his shoulders to his other shoulder and did my other shoulder blade.
Oh.
So, I didn't even know how
We love symmetrical.
Yeah, it's like, the job is not done. And I was like, I was intrigued. I was sort of like, I wasn't turned on. This wasn't a sexual experience, but it was an appreciated, intimate, very like person-to-person kind of nice touch moment. You know? And there's no roadmap for that, by the way.
Example of like flirting without words.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not even sure that this part of the story was flirting. This isn't even the flirting part of it. So afterward, I was like, hey, that was really great. And I finally got his name because I didn't know it. And I was like, that was really great. Are you a massage therapist? Are you trained? And he was like, no, just amateur. And I was like, listen, I know this is a weird ask, but would you ever just be willing to go like half elbow into my back? Like really get in there? Because it just... And I know what you're thinking. That sounds like maybe an overture to something else, like a little sexy, like sexy times. I just wanted a massage because it's so it's so unlikely that I would actually want a massage from somebody.
It for sure, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. So to make a long story very short, he came over to my studio, and we had we talked for an hour and a half. There was no massage, there was no anything at first. We just talked for an hour and a half about the occult, where I was like, here's someone who is like, I'm joking, but like an actual wizard, like someone who is just vibrating at another frequency where they're just like out in the world walking around doing divination based on what they see and observe. And I don't have someone in my life that I can just like text. I've been seeing a lot of the number 5 lately. What do you think that means? And this is like that person that I can do that. So towards the end of we did get to the massage. It was very nice. We put on some like prayer bowl playlist stuff. We turned on the lights. It was great. And then, because it was just the two of us and we had shared multiple levels of intimacy, we had the nice ecstatic dance moment. We had the discussion about the occult. Now we're having massage. It's in a very personal
Mm-hmm.
space. I'm like, now I think we're flirting. I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that anyone is really good at this, but I'm not sure which level we've made it to. You know what I mean? It's really hard to track that in the
Yeah.
moment. So I was like, oh, I had a tank top on. I was like, do you mind if I take off my sweater? Because, like, it'd be easier to get to my back. And I was like, that was a flirtation. That was a flirtatious advance. Um, and then afterwards, I asked him, I was like, how do you feel about making out? As is my way. It's my way, Brooke.
Love it.
I'm very
I love
direct.
that.
I'm very alarmingly direct. And I was like, how do we feel about making out? And he was like, oh, I think I find you attractive. I think that's great. I actually don't think we should mix that with the magic. I think we should do one or the other. Like, we could do that at another point in time, but I want to hold space for this energy and just, like, do it justice. And I was like, no one ever does that.
Love that.
No one has ever said to me, hey, I want to make out with you, but not right now. And it was like,
No.
I wouldn't say it's like, this feels like a very Sex in the City moment where I'm like, oh my God, I was so impressed by that. It wasn't that it was impressive. It was just like
It
unusual.
just stood out because it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It was so unusual. And I did appreciate it because I was like, yeah, if you want to focus on magic tonight, I love that you expressed that. And you were like, let's keep it to this. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a lot that evening. That was an unusual, unique experience for me.
That is a unique flirtation story for sure. But I love it because I think there's so many layers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. You also flirt by like talking about the occult for an hour and a half. I've seen it.
I do.
So that is your flirtation. You know what I mean?
My love language is just the occult. Yeah.
Like, here's the thing, is like when you have very specific interests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to say, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think. Well, okay, I'll say it and then you can kind of put it together. Like, for me, like, I love, like, trash talking, like, operatic composers. And just being like, oh, Berlioz, that bitch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love, I love talking with someone about classical music, romantic music, Baroque music, right? Classical music is the broader term, I guess we can use that, but like opera and I'm just like that chamber work. Like you know what I mean? So when I can find
Don't get me started on Debussy.
Right, exactly. And Brahms was a pedophile, in case anyone was wondering. But like very specific interests, like for me, that flirtation serves a very big part of me. And I don't really want to say it's necessarily, I do think it leads towards flirtation just because it's so rare. I get so excited.
Mm-hmm.
I get so excited when I find someone who knows something so niche that is so, I think, more rare, right, in the circles I'm in, that I'm just like, and it has very little to do with any sexual tension. It's just like, it's so exciting. So I feel like it's similar to the occult thing for you, where it's like, hey, if you find someone, right, and it's like, oh my God, if they have queerness and an interest in this, or plus this, and you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, there's flirtations that really have nothing to do with sexiness.
Yeah, well, I do. It does make sense. And I think, Brooke, you and I both need intellectual stimulation. And we both have nerdy interests, like a lot. And so, what's interesting to me is I like to skip ahead to the point where I'm like, I'm nerdy, can you hang? That's kind of what I'm doing. And I don't even need I don't need them to be knowledgeable about the occult. But there's a way to be like, oh, that's not my thing, but that's interesting that you're into that, and then ask a couple questions about it. And then I'm also the type of person that I'm like, oh, you don't want to do a deep dive on the occult, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the questions that you had. That tells me something.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'm like, what are you into? I'll ask you questions about what you're into.
Girl, if I could just come out, the intellectual stimulation in the state of Florida is rough.
Girl, what are you doing? How are you making it through? It's this. That's why we're doing this. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, girl, listen, let me tell you, it is hit or miss. I think everywhere, but it's also hit or miss in Ohio. And you know what? Just gonna come out to you about which dating apps I'm on. It'll probably also be like a cry for help. You know what I mean? But the one that I'm on the most is Tinder, and I know that's absolute trash. It really is
Mm.
bad
I've never been on Tinder. What makes it so bad?
because unlike OkCupid, which is the other major one I'm on, and I know
Okay.
some people find that annoying because it's like it's very probing and it's very personal and you get asked all these questions, but it gives you like this percentage compatibility. And it's I wish they wouldn't call it compatibility. It should be called something else, but that's their term for what they're measuring. But it's like you can see how you both answered on questions about what I think are very important things. Everything from like politics. So I can see if, oh, this guy is like visually attractive, but he identifies as apolitical. That's a swipe left for me. That's definitely a swipe left. That like I think we know what apolitical means in this day and age.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And also
But it's
just
good
like
to know.
stand in
Just put it out there.
stand in your truth, homie.
Yeah, stand in your
How
stand
can
in your
you
truth.
not have an opinion right now?
See, but that's the thing. I think it's code. I think it's frequently code.
Right. But that's so embarrassing. Like just stand
Oh,
in it.
agreed. It is very embarrassing. But on Tinder, you
So
don't
what's
get
the question
anything
on
about
OK?
that. You just get a little bit of physical statistics, pictures, and that's about it. So you're just like, you are encouraged to rate people based on what you see on the surface. It's like literally judge this book by its cover. That's what it's telling you to do,
Right,
which is
right.
frustrating.
So if you were on OkCupid and you saw an answer to a question, like what would pull you in? Give me an example of a question and an answer where you'd be like, yes, and then one that would repel you.
That's a good question. I think so. This happens with ethical non-monogamy and polyamory too. So like, um, I'm looking for polyamorous connections that are like built on secure attachments. If I see that, I'm like, oh, someone's read the book. You know what I mean? That's like
Oh,
someone's looking at attachment theory and they're not just like, by the way, I think it's perfectly acceptable to say open relationship, but I think it's like open relationship tells me less than the person that's like, I'm in an ethically polyamorous relationship and like here are some of the boundaries around that. Like
yeah.
yeah, like I'm with my primary and I'm looking for casual connections or I'm in a truly like I'm in a polycule and like that kind of details that's really helpful for me.
Hmm.
And then the turnoff, like a really big turnoff for me, is when people still use the term heteroflexible. I really don't care for that. I'm like, you may as well call yourself metrosexual. You know what I mean? Like, it's 2000.
Hetero-flexible people still use that?
Yeah, a lot of guys still say heteroflexible, which to a trans woman, by the way, to me, is code that like, yeah, I've like looked at some trans porn, but I would never like be in a long term relationship with a trans person.
Right,
It's
but
just
I'll
very
never admit.
unsafe.
Oh, it's oh my god.
Yeah,
I didn't even know it was still a term. I
yeah.
don't even know if it was ever a term.
It's kind of like the energy from I don't want to paint with too broad strokes here, but let's paint. Um,
Let's paint away, girl.
let's paint. Color me mine. It's heteroflexible. Is like, hey, you are totally welcome to come over and visit me, and just like you can use the back door. Doesn't that make you feel special? You know what I mean? Like, you can come around to the back of the house under dark of night, but I'm not going to introduce you to my friends. That's what it's
Oh my
giving.
god.
Yeah.
Ew. Ew. Okay, so what did you bring up in the
Oh, polyamorous
preview?
anarchy.
What the fuck is that?
I was wondering how we were going to segue to it, and then it just sort of came up anyway because
I don't give a shit. I want
we
to.
talk about like non-monogamy all the time on the show, so it's like why wouldn't we, right? So
Yeah.
in the book Polysecure by Jessica Fern, which is an attempt to talk about non-monogamy and the connection with attachment theory, but a lot of the writings on attachment theory have been mononormative, like with the
Okay.
assumption that everyone is monogamous and everyone is straight.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
Jessica Fern's book is like trying to break it out into polyamorous and non-monogamous contexts and queerness,
Okay.
which is fantastic.
Okay.
I love it.
Love it.
So
No notes.
in her book, she has this coordinated plane that has two axes. That's like emotional exclusivity and sexual exclusivity, and different flavors of non-monogamy are at different places on that diagram. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's too much. But one of the identity labels that she describes is polyamorous anarchy. And at first, when I read it, it made me uncomfortable. Not because I'm uncomfortable with the idea of anarchy. I think it's that's in my thought space. I'm like, hello, I get that. But also, like, the idea of it is that relationships are free to grow and change on their own all the time. Relationships and friendships are on the same spectrum, where things could flow between platonic and physical and intimate and sexual, and all of that stuff is flowing in a continuum. And you know what's funny, Brooke, is as I reflected on it more, I'm like, that's how I feel about gender, so why would I feel so uncomfortable about that framing with relationships?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm free for my gender to grow and change over time. But something about I have this like need to feel like I need to control my relationships. And what I realized from that is I think that means that there are some insecure attachment types that I have to deal with. Like, it takes extra work for me to feel secure and confident in a relationship and not threatened by the existence of other things that my partner might do or other things that I might do, or like fear of things changing down the line.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of that at play all the time. And I also just want to add to the mix of this that I don't think that polyamorous anarchy is like, they're not in a spectrum from least mature to most mature, right?
Right.
So I'm also not trying to suggest that polyamorous anarchy is like higher up on the maturity scale than the rest of them. But I do think it's interesting for me to consider that one and be like, I don't feel comfortable with that. Why is that?
Right. Right. And I think that's the point, right? Looking on a chart, it's just like, well, where am I and why am I uncomfortable thinking about that?
Yeah.
Or angry or comfortable or whatever, you know what I mean? To just like self-reflect.
Yeah. I've also made out with some friends in the past. And I think the reason I had to reflect on that too, because I'm like, does that mean I'm already doing it? And then I was like, no, I don't think so, because the friends I've made out with in the past stayed friends, and I did not perceive them to be likely to develop into really close romantic, intimate relationships, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, but they were friends, and then there was like a moment of playfulness, right?
Mm-hmm. And I had a little freak out at the time. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Does this change what we are? And the one person that I made out with one time was like, no, I do this all the time. And I was like, okay, cool. Great. I guess we don't have anything to worry about.
So the change is really in the eye of the beholder. If it didn't change anything for you, but it changed something for them,
mm-hmm. Then it changed.
Yeah.
It takes two to have a good time.
That is fascinating. So, okay, polyamorous anarchy is here, and then what's on the rest of the graph?
Oh, so like at the top left, which is high on emotional, and also the way she does quadrants is a little off based on what you normally expect. But anyway, so high on the sexual exclusivity and the emotional exclusivity is monogamy.
Right.
Like that's also on the chart, right? And then on the other end of it is polyamorous anarchy, where it's like things grow and change, they shift, they have intersecting contexts, and you know, it's like kind of very open responsibly. And then you've got hierarchical polyamory, which is the kind of experience where you have a primary relationship where there's a set of things that you only do with that individual, and either or both of you can have relationships outside of that, but they are not to challenge the primacy of the original relationship. And that could be from there's certain things that we don't do with other people. And you know what's funny to me is because it's not grounded in sex for me, like secondary or tertiary. By the way, I think that hierarchical polyamory is what I have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think I
Mm-hmm.
actually have been. I just
Yeah.
didn't think of it that way. And so it's funny, like, for me, the exclusivity is not around sex, it's around doing somebody's laundry,
Yeah. It's
talking
around
about
intimacy.
finances, driving
Yeah.
me to the airport. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's the stuff that feels like this person is really here for me and showing up in my life. Like if I have something really terrible happen, who is the first person I'm going to call for comfort?
Right.
That's the stuff that feels really exclusive to me. And the others, like the sex, the making out, the flirting, it's like, whatever, that's just fun.
Well, and I think it's interesting you bring that up because I think that is for that to me is like more a logical step coming from monogamy because monogamy is kind of set up like one person for X, right? And these like very intimate life partner, like life shit, right?
Life shit. Mm-hmm.
Life shit, right?
There you
And
go,
then like
Jessica Fern. That one's on the house. This chapter's called Life Shit.
non-ethical, non-ethical non-monogamy is what you described without telling your partner. That's non-ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah,
You have someone for life shit, first drives to the airport, first does this, and then you have a little something on the side, right? That's non-ethical non-monogamy.
yeah,
So the translation to what works appears very similar to how it would work if it was non-ethical
yeah.
because it's so close to monogamy in terms of our wiring too as like what we were raised with our conditioning and I think like the generations that are coming up that are finding different it's a scatter plot now it's
Mm,
not quadrants
mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's it's still obviously like gender norms and heteronormativity and monogamy they're oppressive. I'm not doubting that, but you know what I mean. I think it's interesting because I feel like millennials millennials love the term ethical non-monogamy. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel safe. It makes sleep well at night
Mm-hmm.
because we love the word ethical next to it. You know what I mean? But it's like ironic because it's just the other flip of the coin of what we were raised with and what our parents did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Girl, I'm kind of a bureaucrat now in this stage in my life, in this stage in my career. So I always go to like process documentation, and you know what? Very sexy. You know what I think people sometimes freak out about is they want to find the one size fits all solution that they can apply to every relationship in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But every
Mm-hmm.
attachment you form with another human is going to feel and operate differently. So I'm thinking like, what's the template for the process that we can pull
Right.
out and then say, okay, we need to.
Right.
This is too literal, but we need to fill this out together, right? What are we
Right.
comfortable with? What feels like acceptable for the kinds of exclusivity or the kinds of secure attachments that we're looking for? And those things could include time spent together, the amount of texting we do, the kinds of attachments we maintain with other people, boundaries we have about the attachments with other people. Like sometimes I love the term metamor, like the different people in your life that you have romantic attachments with, and they are metamors to one another, right? So they may or may not be in a relationship with one another, but they're both in a relationship with you.
Oh.
Isn't that a fun word, metamor?
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah, so your metamors, for instance, if I'm in a relationship with person A and person B, they are each other's metamors. They may or may it may or may not be okay for me for the two of them to be romantically attached.
Mm.
Because some
But
people are very firm. They're like, no, you are not allowed to be attached. Like, I'm dating both of you and you are not dating each other. And then other times it's like, yeah, we can all date each other. That's fine. You guys can spend time together without me, and it's not going to threaten my connections to the two of you.
oh my gosh, I lost. Oh yes.
There's so much
You
floating in the
know,
air.
humans are so transgressive, right? I'm like in this process document or in this like your like expectation setting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever it's like, hey, I don't want to set this expectation. I want to explore it together because I don't really want to set it because
Yeah.
the fun is discovering it.
Yeah. Actually, there is I don't remember the name of it, but there's a fantastic movie. So my partner and I have been watching a lot of gay Asian TV dramas, and I won't.
For you.
Yeah, and I won't shut up about it. But there was a great one that was actually straight, but it was dealing about um, trying to find your way towards open relationships, but not having experience doing it. So it's new to both of them, but they're both trying it out. And what I like about a lot of these gay Asian TV dramas that you don't see in Western gay stuff a lot is they're modeling good behavior. And I love that because I'm like, it's kind of like in Star Trek when you have the meeting of the senior staff and they're all like politely figuring out problems together. I'm like, this is modeling good behavior.
Right.
So anyway, speaking of things I nerd out about,
But
so
like
they're trying to figure this out together, and there are times where they trip over something that doesn't make the other one feel safe, right? So they're like, oh, we've learned something new. Let's come back together, process this, find out what this means, and then that will inform our next attempt, right? So it's like this iterative process, because so often I think there's this expectation that we come out of the gate doing it perfectly right away.
In everything.
In everything, and including relationships, and that's just not how it works.
Girl.
So you know how many conversations we've had, each of us, to get to the place we are? Where nowadays I'm just
So
like,
much.
if something feels like uncomfortable, I'm just gonna say it, and I'm just like, there's this, and I feel like we need to talk about it. And we can talk about it now, or we can talk about it later. But I'm not going to like fall to pieces about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm really bad at the talking about it later. I'm like, I cannot sit on stuff for days. I think that's like, I don't know, millennials, we all don't label ourselves as anxious, right? But we all are.
We all are. Every single one of us.
I'm like, oh my God, like, hey, let's sit on this for a few days. I'm like, I am going to murder a pile of kittens. No.
Yeah. You're like, cool, maybe you can talk about this with your new partner.
I am moving out. So.
Yeah. That's great.
That's hilarious.
So flirting. How do we bring this back to flirting? Because, girl, we have just a little bit of time left. And we did so we got some feedback last time that it takes us a while to get to the topic.
Well, I would like to address that piece of feedback.
I wish you would. Please continue.
First of all, how dare you?
Good night, everybody. Yeah.
That's the end of the addressing of the feedback.
Yeah.
But we did cover some flirting things. Okay, closing remarks on flirting. I'm terrible at it. I think we're both terribly lovely at it. I think we're both nerds, and I think what we've discovered is flirting is just intentional conversation. I think when I flirt, I just become like that 8th grade girl who awkwardly asked Zach Bevilacqua to dance at the moving up day dance, and Zach Bevilacqua had on linen pants because his parents hated him, and sent a 7th grader to a middle school dance in linen pants, and he got a huge boner while we were dancing.
Oh no, linen pants. What kind of underwear is he wearing?
I don't know, but his parents were monsters for doing that to that poor boy. Like no boy in puberty should own linen pants. Like, do not do that to them.
Also, I can't even repeat the last name because it has so many syllables in it, but it sounded beautiful.
Zach Bevilacqua, yeah.
Bevilacqua. That's a beautiful name.
Isn't it? I would have looked great as a Bevilacqua.
Bevilacqua. It has a really nice ring to it, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds like your pen. It's your Danielle Steele. It's your like.
Yes.
It's your romantic novel author name.
But my middle name, it'll be my middle name, that Ashley Bevilacqua.
Ashley Bevilacqua. That is too good. That's too good.
That's it. That's my new name.
Speaking of keeping on topic.
Definitely alter ego who's also a realtor. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley Bevilacqua, realtor at large.
Yeah, and I want your last name to take up the full expanse of the full width of the billboard.
I'll do my hair like this, with like little tendrils.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my god, yes. Oh my god. Oh, you know what that's giving me? That's giving me woman who owns a very successful Italian restaurant in the 90s.
Ooh, yes.
Who knows everyone, who knows all the regulars
Love it. And has too much red wine and has to be carried out
every night.
every night.
Yeah. Every night,
Girl,
baby.
this looks great. I love it. I think we talked about flirting more than normal. I think we stayed on topic more than normal. And I
That's
think
true.
we
That's
have to
true.
give ourselves that.
And that's the hill we will die on. Closing thoughts about flirting. I think you should just do it because the worst thing somebody's gonna say is no. And what is happening? What are we doing?
Prom.
We're doing prom. Oh my god. Next week's topic is prom. We'll see you there. You look like you're getting glamour shots at the like photo kiosk at the mall. You just need a boa.
I need a giant crayon and a small ladder.
It's very Alice in Wonderland.
Oh.
No, the thing I have to say about flirting is, I often feel like I'm gonna make people uncomfortable, like I'm just forcing myself upon them and in their space when it's unwelcome. And the thing is, like, the times when I've been the most direct, and I don't even know how to describe how I got there, but I just go up to somebody and I'm like, hey, I think you're attractive, and if you're interested, I would love to make out with you at a time that is right now or a time of your choosing in the future. And the times that I've done that, I've never regretted it. It was great. Sometimes it worked out.
You know
Sometimes
what?
they were like, "Who are you?" And then we both continue with our night, and it's fine.
Girl, I think that's excellent advice. Seize the day, seize the lips, covered dish viewers. And thank you for tuning in to our first deep dish of the year, not our last.
It's more to come.
We'll be back many a time, and my hair will continue to look just absolutely fabulous.
Mm. An ever evolving journey. Hair. All right. See you next week for Covered Dish. Bye.
Bye, y'all.